So people have lost their dogs today. Are the second people that I've seen walking around aimlessly and calling some silly name that a disobedient mutt fails to appear. Maybe somebody's catching them and eating them. I don't know what's happening. It's a problem, isn't it, when you release a dog in a wild place like these woods? I mean, it can go anywhere. That's the problem. And of course, sometimes they do. They go all over the place. I'll just pause it because they might be coming around here. And so there's the matter of fake animals to discuss. I've spoken of it before, but people find it very hard to, to kind of understand that this level of deception could be occurring, and it's rather difficult to prove. Although some people have made very good collections of video footage that is highly suspect. There are certain animals on that spectrum. I might do a video on the whole subject of the deception in the animal kingdom. I think the animal kingdom has been used to control us quite skillfully, and we need to be wary of it. I said to my New Age friend the other day, I said, well, people form these relationships with animals, but they are in dangerous territory because an animal has a spiritual presence which is alien to us. And of course, he said, I couldn't disagree with you more, because those people believe that the animals contain the true essence of the living God, really, and they do, but not in the way that they think they do. I mean, they do because they're creation, and everything that is in creation, I suppose, has the Spirit of God within it, but sometimes it can get perverted, and sometimes it's not for us to pry into certain matters, and a lot of prying has gone on since the sort of industrial revolution and the whole science conceits. But there we have it, two very different perspectives. It's God and the adversary. That's the battle lines are drawn up, although nobody's going to go and do any particular battle with one another, because we're all brothers and sisters ultimately. There's various matters on my mind. I thought I might mention a few words about the compassion of men and, contrariwise, the ruthlessness of women. It's the sort of the overall narrative is that men are cruel and ruthless and heartless, and there are several things that are brought out to demonstrate that. The For example, the brutality supposed of the German armies in the north of Italy is something that I had some dealings with in terms of narrative, and apparently there were atrocities committed where German platoons gunned down defenseless women and children just standing in as reprisal for attacks by the the undercover, what do they call them now, the resistance, the Resistenza, the Italian freedom fighters who were paid for by with communist money. But they're all actors on the stage, you see. And I'm very skeptical. I mean, I've met many German people and I admire them greatly. I just don't think you're going to get lines of or soldiers willing to machine gun down women and children who have done nothing to deserve any such fate. It beggars belief, and I'm afraid that we might be seeing some more theatre and narrative in these accounts. Very difficult to verify, and apparently not too difficult to construct. Of course, I can't prove it, so like many things, these are just ideas. But the brutality of the Germans, of course, under Hitler, somebody called him the Austrian artist, has been used very skillfully to dismantle German excellence. The German people are, they're our brothers, and their technological grasp of the world is tremendous. They're great engineers, and they are soldiers for Christ, and so they needed to be brought to heel. The Germans were seen as being more dangerous, perhaps, than others, and so they were done. That was done through war atrocities, and of course the concentration camps. And on that matter, do your own due diligence, as I sometimes say. Um, I've listened to all the lectures of David Irving and found them absolutely fascinating. You can probably still find them. You might have to go to Telegram. But I'm not the first person to raise my eyebrows at some of that stuff, or a lot of that stuff, and that paid really to German nationalism, and was in the interest of probably one group of people, one bloodline, very efficiently done. Whereas the British were destroyed mainly through slavery, I think. This accusation that we were behaving with such brutality towards African men and women, and treating them as chattel, and killing them willfully on the trip over, and selling them at market in Liverpool and all the rest of it. Again, when you start looking into the historical actual grounds for all these things, they're very thin on the ground, actually. And you have to believe such a change in heart of our people. When I was growing up in the 1950s, there were no black people that I noticed around. And then my father had invited a man, his name was Mr. Santini, and he was a man of colour. I don't remember whether he might have been Indian or something. I don't remember exactly, but he wasn't white, and he's the first person that I'd seen. And my father was, very deferential towards him. And of course, we'd had Guess Who's Coming to Dinner probably by that time, or similar propaganda. So we had to be on our best behaviour. But I mean, it's normal for us. We are a hospitable people. We don't just buy Africans and sell them in Liverpool. I mean, that's just a preposterous idea. And in fact, no slave ship has ever been found, although drawings for slave ships have been found aplenty. I wonder who did them. The whole thing is just doesn't really stand up, you see, but was very effective in destroying British nationalism, and in promulgating this myth that men are untrustworthy, and if they get half the chance, absolutely brutal. And you'll find this in movies as well. Of course, there'll be these wicked, serial killer men that just can't be trusted at all. But that's not really the case. The problem with us men is that we are rather sentimental sometimes, and it can get the better of us. But men tend to be very compassionate because we're in charge of the family, and we have to look after the weakest members of the family. And I've met many men who've just shown such great compassion, whereas women, on the other hand, do have a certain cold ruthlessness about them. So it's the opposite to the one that we're told. I mean, you've only got to look at the Bible to find ruthless women, really. I look at the compassion of Jacob towards Rachel and Leah, and look at Rachel's treatment of Haggai and her son, her husband's son, actually, without any compunction, just sending them off to die, really. I'm sure that Jacob was very upset about it, but he followed the Lord, and he knew that things were in the Lord's hands, I suppose. And then, of course, Athaliah, who I mention sometimes, Jezebel. There's no shortage of ruthless and vindictive women in the Bible. I'm not saying there's no ruthless and vindictive men, but as a general trait, I think those qualities actually, surprisingly enough, are typically more typical of womankind than of mankind. And so again, it's used against us to show that we are to be controlled. And Satan needs to control the men, and he's done it through control of the women largely, but also by attacking our nature and our God-given nature, which makes us caring and kind and compassionate for the most part, I would say. I don't know whether anybody else would like to comment. God bless.